Okay. All right. I think this time the microphone's working. I false start just a minute ago. Okay. So the show must go on here. So today we're going to be reading in Pranama Method from page 239. We're in the sixth hub in techniques and exercises, and we're going to be talking about intuition, insight, and imagination. And one of the things I think when I was steering into this reading, I don't read them ahead of time, which is evident. which is evident by the fact that I tend to talk over the thing that was written. Um, but in thinking about intuition, insight, and imagination, and there's two sections in this, which is intuition and imagination, which is building the library. We'll talk about that. And then imagination and insight, seeing potential. And it's, I guess, I guess one of the things that I'd point to with this is how life affirming and possibility enhancing this is, as far as what becomes like what we can make out of a life. And so in terms of yeah, let me think. Yeah, okay, I'm just thinking for a second here about like how to say this. I'm slightly scattered, but maybe I'll just start reading and we'll see kind of what comes up. So for the first section, we have intuition and imagination and building the library. So to paraphrase Stephen King's quote from earlier, imagination combines things we already know or have seen to create new things. So like Lego bricks, the volume and variety in our inner library determines what we can build. So the more variety you have in what you've seen and experienced, the more material you have to work with for creation. If your days are spent with the same people, surroundings, entertainment, roads, buildings, and meals, there's a greater chance of feeling creatively limited and perhaps uneasy about new things. But it doesn't take much to grow and stimulate the capacity of your nervous system. Try brushing your teeth with your non dominant hand, sleeping on the opposite side of the bed, get your partner involved, taking a different route to work, or trying a different recipe or new restaurant. Activities like a day trip to a new place, visiting a museum, reading a new book, watching a new show, vacationing in a new place, all expand our horizons and are extra effective when body movement is involved. Important part here. So try noticing new things. Where is the first bird you see today? So outside, in a painting, in a decorative detail. So let's see. I feel like that's pretty comprehensive. Um, one thing that I point out is that, I grew up in a small town, and I've kind of pointed to this before, but when I return, one of the things that I notice is that people who've never left are kind of trapped in a very insular level of thinking that I think I tend to see brings a lot of unhappiness, which is, yeah. And one of the things that we're doing when we build our our exposure to new experiences, like you go to a new restaurant, you go to a new place, you talk with somebody from a different culture or from a different has a different lifestyle than you, with receptivity. One of the things, being receptive, we're actually taking things in, to incorporate them in our knowledge of the world. And so one of the other things is like the more protective we are about what we're allowing in, the more restricted sort of possibility becomes. And this is really about expanding what's possible because the more that we see, the more combinations can be created, and the more, I mean, for traveling, one of the things, certainly for me, one memory I have was I was sitting in I think it was like in a cafe in Turkey, which sounds like a real setup, but, or Greece. It was one or the other. I had a group of, like a international group of friends that I traveled with for a period of time, a long time ago now, 20 years ago. And I remember we were sitting there and he was Maori from New Zealand, and I was, like, coming out of my career at Eli Lilly, my time working at Eli Lilly, and I was telling him, like, these factual things about what it takes to be successful, and he just was like, "What? That's not true." And it blew my mind, like, because it was just like I was like, it just had never up until then, it was like this was, like, something I discovered that was an absolute truth. And to have someone who lived a very different lifestyle, with, like, a very different set of values that were, like, really grounded in nature, really grounded in doing things that were fulfilling and enjoyable and being connected with people. And my whole notion of, like, what it took to get ahead was just, like, sad to him. He was like, "Oh, that sounds awful." And that kind of thing, that's a good example of this, which is like, it's like breaking these patterns as far as like notions of like how things are. And it doesn't mean that, I mean, quite frankly, it's not that I took that on and, adopted a lifestyle that was, I went back in after that and did did the thing again and again and again and again. Um, but the point is that a seed was planted, a notion was inside of me that was like, "Okay, there's other options." It creates hopefulness because the stuckness of feeling like these are the only options that I have, that's all I know is can be really depressing, if especially if it's doesn't, if there's this sense that it's moving against your natural innate sense of self-expression and integrity. So, going to concerts, seeing different music, but a big thing is that it's like actually there's a bit more like with movement and being out in the world. I'm gonna talk about social media here as a tool, but I'm actually gonna speak to it because I don't know if I wrote in this. Um, but a part of this is that cataloging things that are like have sensate qualities to them beyond just kind of like watching, even though that isn't off the table. I'll say like don't that's not this isn't a discount of that. But anyway, so social media can be used as a tool to either expand or limit horizons. If you're scrolling and something makes you feel less than, put yourself in the driver's seat and either unfollow or mute. Just because you know a person or choose to follow strangers, it doesn't mean you're obligated to see whatever they decide to post. Part of a boundary in the sixth hub is getting involved with what you will tolerate seeing. Addition to a feed can be subtraction. Stop tolerating and participating in other people's battles with perfectionism and instead fill your eyes with empowering, engaging, enlightening, aspirational images. Also, try following people who challenge the status quo of your current perspectives in ways that are unfamiliar to you. This will constantly change. So keep it alive by unfollowing and then following others to keep your feed a place to go to enrich and grow. So seeing friends' pictures of their happy families when you're going through a separation can feel painful, but notice the difference between this and seeing lives unfamiliar to yours that push against your comfort zones and create dissonance and discomfort. When we're mindful of where we direct our attention, we can reprogram ourselves and unlearn biases. We can build a social media feed full of images of other human beings and do daily consciousness expansion through exposure therapy. Work through discomfort with differences and scroll your way to greater humanization and creativity. And when you're in the spaces created by the people you're seeking to understand, don't comment. This might be one of the best part, this if not the redeeming feature in this in this paragraph is that, and when you're in the spaces created by the people you're seeking to understand, don't comment, just observe and learn and perhaps notice the urge to comment and explore where it's coming from. So this was written during the pandemic. That's, like, definitely like, a vestigial of the pandemic, like, the notion of, like, "Okay, well, use your social media for this," and I did. I did. When I was writing this, I was following people that made me uncomfortable in terms of, like, their level of freedom of self-expression, and, by consciously, like, seeing that it was making me uncomfortable and kind of staying with it, not really trying to change it. I mean, one of the things is, like, feeling feelings that are kind of like, "This isn't great," and being like, "Where does this come from?" And using it as not necessarily trying to understand them, but trying to understand myself. Say, like, "Why does this upset me?" Instead of like, "Why do people live like that? Like, what the fuck? Like, how do we know?" This thing about, like, let me make sense of this when it's like you can't make sense. When we can't make sense of our own reaction to something is like instead of just to keep it externalized versus finding the trail of breadcrumbs that are leading to something that is really, yeah, I mean, and one of the thing something also that I'll mention is that the richness of, as someone who, has built, a lot of teams, the richness of being able to expand capacity and perception of people, it's ongoing, certainly ongoing, but just the types of teams you can build and the types of collaborations that are possible, the like it's just better work. It's more interesting things that are being created. They're more powerful because monocultures are really are not super powerful. They're powerful in one condition, in one set of conditions. And a monoculture is like exactly that, which is like it's designed to work in a specific set of conditions. And if those conditions change, it's, rendered really obsolete or, really impacted in terms of its effectiveness. So if something has the resilience of like and dynamism, it has a lot more possibility. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone because I don't know if anybody who would be following this along would be building teams or anything, whatever. Or just relating to being on them, I mean, that's one of the things where, um, like, the level of consciousness that leaders have about why you want to have, I'm gonna use the word diversity because it's kinda but it's like because it's now sort of but the idea. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot about, like, the idea that diversity is, like, this sort of favor, but it's actually, like, it's about really enhancing, like, the capability and power of an organization, and it's real and one of the things I've found is that when people are in this kind of activated, like, semi-activated state by being surrounded by people that have a similar sort of wavelength, but have very like different approaches on it. That really cool and interesting things happen. And being part of these teams can be like have a really significant impact on people's lives. So imagination and insight, seeing potential. Okay. So you also have unique visionary capabilities, and whether you're in touch with them or not, there are versions of the future that you can see before they exist. So, a teacher sees potential in a student. An entrepreneur sees a business opportunity when presented with a problem. An architect sees a structure before it's built. If you struggle to identify your purpose and talent, pay special attention to where you can see potential. This is like, this is a good one. Your emblem, your unique capability to create the future, wants to express itself wherever you envision potential. Be patient and pay attention to this inclination. Don't look to where you naturally criticize and point out flaws. Criticism has no vision because it cuts down an existing creation and lacks the curiosity to imagine a positive alternative. Usually, with a sentiment like, things need to be changed, but without the intention to take responsibility to make change. Making judgments without the intention of fixing anything is a bad habit that robs us of our potential. So instead, see if you can shift criticism and judgment to an inclination to imagine positive solutions. Yeah, I mean, when in reading this, it's like, I mean, the version of criticism, it part of it also has to do with like your, in this particular instance, like your level of willingness to participate in a positive outcome, and also, yeah, actually, I'm going to stop at that. So the distinct feeling, okay. Instead, see if you can shift criticism and judgment to an inclination to imagine positive solutions. So the distinct feeling is a vision and inspiration. This can be tended to this can be tending to imagine new melodies or new harmonies to existing songs, or seeing an outfit and imagining an accessory for it, having respect for the original creator as you add your vision. See, that's the important part, is like additive. Being critical can be transitioned by using the energy to imagine how something could be better, while considering why something is the way it is to begin with, and respecting that no matter how flawed something is, it represents inspiration and action of an initial creation. So, yeah, and of course, like anything, there's exceptions here. There are people that are, kind of meddling, who might go, "Oh, that you should, like whatever." That's not, so there's that. But so here, I think one of the most important things here is like noticing, it's like, am I cutting something down, or am I feeling committed and inspired to a better outcome? So is my noticing about something just simply, like, yeah, is it's literally cutting down something that exists with no proposed, like, alternative optimization or solution, or respect for what has been built or created, regardless of your taste in it. I mean, big thing is like, is having respect. Like in business, there's a real tendency in technology, to be really like disdainful and like almost haughty about the generations of tech that came before. But they are really and truly, like, they are what you are. Just, you'll like, whatever the current thing is like, you're going to be that. Like, you're the future's past, I mean, and so the state of existing in it, I mean, like, so one thing was like working in internet. I worked at a company that did internet technology, and the board had a number of folks who had been like early pioneers of cable. And at this point, cable was like, oh my God, streaming services are like, we're, it was at the dawn, sort of dawn, I don't know, twilight, whatever, the of streaming completely taking over, and internet only as, like, the option for most houses. And I just remember talking to these guys, and they're, like, older guys, and in a lot of ways, it was kinda like, "Oh, these dinosaurs, they're not in the tech space," but, like, talking to them about what it took to actually, like, make cable work, to, like, that they were going door to door. and they were having to, like, when they were running the actual cable to connect houses, they were, like, they had to, like, cross over area, like, they did all this crazy stuff. There was this one story where they used a compound bow to tie a wire and shoot it over, like, an area they didn't have egress for, so they couldn't access it. So they had to figure out how to, like, make this connection, and so they, like, launched it over, like, and it's just funny it's like innovation, and, like, that it was once really alive. Like, when it was being created, it was alive, and then, now that it's sort of, but the thing was, in the current climate, it was like this thing like cable's the worst, and it was like, no, cable was once like the forefront. It was the frontier, and the same types of stories about how they solve things. I mean, one of the things that's really like I've always thought was an interesting anecdote about this was, um, where we think like, we used to think like channels, cable was about getting all these channels and these options. But originally when they, and originally when they were selling cable door to door, like, people didn't really care about the additional channels. They cared about the fact that they were going to get clear signal on their broadcast channels that they're already watching. Like, that was one of the things that made cable come alive, is that people just, because when it had been previously like the rabbit ears, because people were receiving it over air, because it was cable versus over air. So, like, that's also, like, you think about a huge innovation, is that, is that reception was an issue. Like, people, it would be like staticky. And so, they'd miss out on, like, the sound quality or the visual quality. I mean, for people who are, even at my age, like, there was a period of my life early on where, like, TVs were over air. There were, not everybody had cable. Cable was, like, not was, like, more of a, like, more urban thing, like, because it's, like, high density populations because you're building out infrastructure. And and so, like, you'd have that thing, you'd be watching a show, and all of a sudden it would be like be like fuzz. So, there's that. But okay, so where that was about, distracting myself here. Criticism. So it's like, there's also something about, like, looking to be like, okay, where's the where's the through line here in terms of something that I can learn from this situation. But I'm gonna go back to the seeing potential, because it's like that's the root of this whole entire thing, which is, where do you see, like, so this is one of the things in in the How to Fly a Horse thing, the Kevin Ashton book that, was referenced in the last chapter, which is like the thing that makes us uniquely human, is this, like, kind of notion of improvement, of optimization, of seeing, of, like, creating. And you look at it, I mean, like, you look at, like, how far technology goes, it's like this is the most human thing, is that it's like right now you're watching this on a screen. And I said this at some other time, you know, and, like, you can like, it's just nuts. Like, if you just think about even the technology of how we're interfacing right now is unheard of, even, 10, 15, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Um, but looking at potential as being, it's like, if there's this sense of like, yeah, I don't know what my thing is. I don't know where my genius is. I don't know where my spark is. It's looking for, where do you see these things? And it can be in a lot of places. It's not going to be in one. But for me, I'll say, like, where I see potential is in people. My thing is people. I so I let's like I built teams, and what that means is I hire a lot of people and I develop a lot of people. And I did it for, like, I don't know, like, I guess we're getting like a decade and a half, maybe two, like, kind of 2 decades ish. Um wow. And so part of that means, part of the thing that made me effective in this was that I was able to see people's, like, future. Like, I could see what they could be capable of. They'd tell me things, and I'd be like, "Oh, I see what that can lead to." And so instead of hiring people off of, like, what they'd done previously, and one of the things is, like, if you hire people off what they've done previously for skills, um, like, there's certain positions you absolutely need that for, but there's something to be said for headroom for a person's, like, so there are certain people that you hire and you're like, that what you see is what you get, and then there's other people that you bring on board that it's really about being like, "Oh, I see this, like, capability in here that's, like, really exciting and how fun it is to, like, witness the unfolding and support it." And just, like, how for me, that's, like, this kind of ultimate thing that I just love. It's just my thing. And so the thing that I'll say is I can be very bullish with people about what I see as their potential, and to go full circle as to, like, Parinama, like, why are we all here is or why am I here? Why and then, like, whatever, but, is that that one of the things it's like the potential people have is blocked by things that by what we're talking about right now. So to, like, really actualize, like, the ability to, like, experience all that's possible for you or, like, what is possible or greater levels of possibility, it's really the, like, the mending of the internal division, like, the reduction of shame, like, being like, changing the relationship with fear for physical safety, social safety. So this is really about really a continuance of that for me, which is, kind of, which really is something that it's just I don't know why. I don't even know why. It's just it's like it's something that just is really, um, life-giving for me. I don't know why, like, there was a company I worked for where my boss, who was the CEO, was really struggling with the fact that I was so motivated by developing people, more so than anything else, including making piles of money, which I was doing, but the fact that there was no way to, like, to manipulate me, um, into yeah, like, that I wasn't controllable with that. It was, like, very confusing, and I remember us having that conversation. It was very confusing for them 'cause my motivation made no sense to them. And not that it made sense to me, it's just and this goes back to, like, finding your thing. It doesn't really make sense. It just is part of who you are, which is, like, when you walk into, like, when you hear a piece of music, like, or it's like, do you hear music? Do you hear like, what's the thing? Like, what's the thing that is, like and if you can't if you're like, "I don't know what it is," just bring some attention to, like, where this happens, and just decide right now to notice it. You either know what it is right off the bat, or it's a matter of, like it really is a matter of just deciding to say, "Okay, I'm gonna pay attention to this now." Like, where do I see potential? Where do I see, like, kind of get inspired by, like, "Oh, you could do this with that. It'd be so great if that had this." And, like, the caveat in here is, like, that it's not that that's shit, that's garbage, and here's my awesome idea. Because one of the things is that and this is very, low-key parinama, is that the whatever has actualized the thing that you're looking at to optimize has the stronger position, um, just by, like It's a stronger position. It's a stronger position when we talk in chapter 12 about like creation, is that, and even when we talk in chapter 11 about like hub predominances in terms of distribution, this is where folks who are lower hub dominant are going to, really be able to like control and like hold power. So even one of the things about like critiquing and tearing things down, just being aware that that notion is like lacks power too. It's like looking at something and not respecting like what actually like and like looking and being interested in the mechanism that actually created something that exists versus having a theoretical criticism of something that exists and like considering that to be a superior position. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what this is like definitely in the interstices of what I'm talking about. It's a really like it's a really good conversation that is, right now I'm just saying it to myself. So there's that kind of thing that keeps happening in this. But yeah, I think that's all she wrote for today. And next we'll do decision making with somatics, where he's like our physical body. We're going to talk about ideation and dreams more. Curiosity and looking, if an exercise there. We'll do together. We're going to do it together. I'm going to do it with you. Assume positive intent. It's like sort of foundational to this, and then it keeps on going. I don't know how much further. Let's look together. Oh, visual boundary, charge and discharge. So light massage, palms on eyes, and then we're going to do accordion and brow release. And then we are on to the 7th hub, chapter 10. Holy cow, that's really wild. So it's like 1, 2, I don't know. Yeah. It is my intent to get this done this year, to read this entire book this year. It's so bittersweet because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a special emphasis on chapter 12, the reverse flow of self-actualization for creating things. So that'll be coming up. But I think what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a parinama for beginners and then start again. Go from the top through. I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen, but it feels right now. It feels right now like what I'm starting to see, that the way this works is like very much like, and this had been said to me early on, which is like the Course in Miracles, which is like a daily reading. So I don't know, like, cause yeah. I think the ongoingness of this is kind of ongoingness of it. So anyhow, we'll see. For right now, we're right here. And so next reading will start at 2:40. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. At likes and comments, any comments I answer. If you do want to reach out to me, and you don't have my contact information, it's at the Parinama Method on Instagram. You can direct message me. I tend to respond. I do respond for the most part to everyone, and as soon as I can, in a reasonable amount of time. I'm interested. I'm very interested in what you have to say and what you think. So please share. Even if it's like, even if it's dissension or contrary or whatever, I'm not precious in that way. I'm interested in alternative perspectives to mine. So, and receptive. Yeah. So, yeah, like one thing, even about writing the book, with my editor that she mentioned, and I didn't even consider this to be that, like, remarkable of a thing, is, like, how willing I was to just, like, tear it all down and start over in parts that didn't work. I mean, one of the things too, I think, about this is that what we're doing is we are connecting with our power and our energy and our source. And one of the things about being like holding on, this is actually, I'm thinking of like business examples here. With people, with just the thing about being afraid of the work, like being like, oh, I don't, that was so much work to get this, and now I have to just like throw it away and start over. And that goes back, with one of the cognitive biases with the sunk cost fallacy, which is like I have to kind of keep going. But I think the psychology of that, and I think from being, from my time as a boss, is just watching people feel like, oh, I remember how hard it was, if they're working on a deal, like to get the deal, to get the meeting, to get to write the proposal, to do all the work. And when the deal's floundering and it's like not going to happen, and every signal is being put out there, that there'll be like like almost like commitment to to the deal, this like dead thing, instead of just like throwing it out and creating some like airspace for more stuff to land. And so it's like letting energy get absorbed by this thing that's already like pretty much dead. And so it's like that, and it's like instead of reclaiming it and like bringing joy back into the process of like discovery and finding new things. But if you're low energy, and these things, what we're talking about in Parinama is like fear, shame, like the adaptations suck energy out of us, like because we're having to hold them. Like they're like we're having to like hold on to these things instead of being able to be dynamic and flowing with things and trusting more. And um so it's like the accessing more energy is part of the benefit of this. And it's kind of like, well, why would you want to, like back to like, why would you want to make a big commitment to doing this? I'm already, it's like, hey, I'm already limited in terms of my time and energy. And it's like, because you get more energy, like you get, and it's a multiplier. You got a lot more energy for the amount of energy that you put in. So, one of the things is like we're breaking open these like calcified tangles that are restricting our access to feeling fully alive. And what does fully alive represent? It's like energy. It's energy. And, I mean, yeah. Yeah. A lot of this is like callback to things that have to do with, this like version of my life where I'm, like a boss, and it's like, it's calling this back, which is surprising to me. But here it is nonetheless. It is, I mean, it's one of the things I've been thinking about, because I don't really I just don't identify with that part of my life very strongly, whereas other people identify me with it, um, more so. Like just by nature of how they know me. And, so it's like even when I'm my beloved TikTok, where and even people with like online businesses and stuff, where it's like, it's realizing it's like, I actually, yeah, I don't have like, it was really important for me in the creation of this. And sometimes I think like, oh, I kind of wait, I should have done this earlier, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it was really important to me that I would not be doing this from a place, because of how precious these notions are in terms of presenting them to people and working with people on them, like how precious and like vulnerable. Yeah. vulnerable, I guess is the word. There's a word that I'm not really getting to, is that if I were trying to figure out how to extract money from you for this, as like in like the primary sense of this, where it's like, okay, I need you to buy my, ba ba da ba da ba, that that if that was in the mix here in terms of how I'm interfacing with you in this, that it would um it just interferes with what it is, because it's like it's inserting my it would be inserting my ambition into a process that is uniquely about your own self-actualization. And if anything, like, the benefit I'm getting from this is my own continued evolution. So, and it's not to say that the future of Parinama does not involve things that cost money. I mean, I don't know where this, I don't know. But the point is that at its core, that this is accessible in this very particular way. And as a result of that, I think there are things that are, that are like kind of like shiny, um, and people who are presenting themselves in particular ways that are attempts to represent their own aspirations. So yeah, yeah. So I'm not. I mean, like, I guess I'm not going to like. I'm already there, so I'm not gonna like. I'm not gonna reduce myself in terms of like this kind of thing of trying to like feed from folks who I'm trying to support, or like, to like, I don't know. I'm strange. It like feels very clear to me, but I'm not articulating it very well. It matters. The thing that matters to me in this is that if you come in earnest to this, that it's available for you. And what's possible in this is absolutely extraordinary. And it's all, one of the things I've been contemplating before getting onto this was like, in order to, what was the saying? It's like, if you can't see it, you can't achieve it. And, it's like in some ways that's true. And in some ways, I will say that what is the result of what happens with Parinama is is like a going beyond what's even perceived to be possible. And the idea that people are going to be able to see it, that you're gonna be like driving up in your Lamborghini. It's more that it's not gonna matter anymore. Like the validation of someone understanding your inner state. It's almost like that whole model create like that validation of proving people wrong. Like they're going to be able to solve the issue of inadequacy that they planted in you. By being like, sorry, it's like it's planted. That's it's like not that what's possible in this is something of just a higher order. Higher joy, a higher experience. Like it just, yeah. Anyway, I'll let you figure it out. You can figure it out. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, that's it. This one was kind of like a little weird, but you know what? It's important to me that, or it's not even important to me. It's just part of this is that I show up every day, regardless of how I feel, um, to the greatest extent that I can, because I care about this. So that my feelings, I am incorporating them into this, and I'm not trying to diminish an aspect of myself, but because this matters to me so much, I show up every day to as close as possible. every day isn't like every day. Every day is just that every day it's like literally like the yeah, you know, whatever. Oh my God, enough already. Okay, I'll talk to you later, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.